everybody, I'm your host Gary from Killer Off-Road Hobbies, and today we're going to be doing a full review and my thoughts video on none other than the Losi Tenacity MT. Now this is a product that comes from Horizon Hobby. You can find this for about $400 pretty much anywhere that sells Losi products. We're going to go over the truck, how it handles, what you kind of get with it. I'm just going to run through a little bit of the stats for you. I'm going to talk about my experiences with the truck, and then at the end of this I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, whether I would recommend it to you, to bash, to crash, to have fun with. Alright, we're going to do some pros and cons as well, so let's get into it. Alright, starting off, I'll give you a few stats on this truck. It is a true 1/10 scale 4-wheel drive monster truck. It comes with 3,800 kV 550 size brushless motor from Dynamite. It's the Fuse series. There you go, right there. Pretty anodized red. Yay! Okay, so powering that motor, you have the Dynamite Fuse 130 amp 2 and 3S capable ESC. It's basically a rebranded Hobbywing. I was able to program this with my Hobbywing program card, and I got the full 12 options on this. So it is a good ESC. It's the good version. I'm pretty sure it's a easy one run. I think a rebranded easy run, whatever, but it's a good ESC, good motor. We will get into the pros and cons later. Now all of this is waterproof. The steering servo is a Spectrum, and it is the S605. Now I didn't really look up the stats on that, but it is plenty for this truck. It turns the wheels beautifully, and I haven't had any problems with the servo, other than I kind of had a hard time getting this truck to track straight, which I'm a basher. I just kind of trim it back and forth. No big deal. This truck also comes with active vehicle control, which is pretty standard on the Losis nowadays. I don't personally use active vehicle control, but it is nice for those of you that are just getting into the hobby to kind of help you drive and drift around and basically keep this thing under control. Now I'll talk about the transmitter a little bit. The transmitter is kind of an upgraded DX2E. It does have the colors. It has a few positives on this one, with being able to switch from low, medium, high settings to give the truck less or more power if you want to. It has your standard reverse switches, your active vehicle control. Basically you can turn it up or down, and then your standard trims here with your steering trim and your throttle trim. Now you do have a bind button, and this does not have steering dual rate on it because that is taken by the active vehicle control. But all in all, it's a good transmitter. I had no problem with anything with this, range or anything. It does run on 4 AA's, which is a plus, and it's kind of growing on me. I don't like the generic basic version of this, but I do like this version with a little bit of color, a little bit of extra goodies for you. So I do kind of like this transmitter much more than their basic generic one they send with lesser kits. Now going over the truck, a lot of people have said this truck is relatively expensive, coming in at $400. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit, but I do want to just kind of go over the truck once more for you guys if you didn't watch the first look video. So starting in the rear, you're going to have plastic bodied, plastic capped shocks. They are not threaded, so you do have to use preload clips. There is camber links, but the camber links are non-adjustable. The only adjustments you have is there's 2 screw holes in the actual hub itself. You have a typical H-arm on the bottom, so there's nothing special going on here. It's just all basic stuff. You do have the bottom load battery tray, and then like I said, the Fuse 3800 kV motor, the 130 amp ESC in the front. The story's a lot of the same. You have plastic bodied, plastic capped, non-threaded shocks that you do have to use preload clips on if you want to adjust your ride height. You do have non-adjustable turnbuckles and non-adjustable camber links. You also have basically typical H-arms on the front here as well. It is a full plastic chassis, but the plastics are rugged. I will say that. This thing has taken a absolute beating and it's hungry for more. So now that I've gone over basically the stats of the truck, kind of what you get, I will tell you some pros and cons about it. So the first con, I'll start with cons and then go, I'll go con pro, con pro. So the first con about this is the shell is actually really flimsy. This is basically fully reinforced with goop and drywall tape, and it absolutely necessary because the whole back of this body would have blown out already, and I'm pretty sure the front and the top would have as well if I didn't reinforce it right away. Now I did spray this thing with Flex Seal as well, so this is pretty well reinforced. It's still good to go though now that I've reinforced it right out of the gate. I mean, the back is pretty damaged, but a pro is I do think it looks cool. The dark blue is pretty is a pretty cool color, and all in all, the body, it just looks like a nice truck. You know, it's got a K.O.R.H hood. It's, you know, basically what would be considered an extended cab. So it is a pretty decent looking body. It's not the coolest thing I've ever seen, but it's not something that I would rush to get rid of. I would just make sure I reinforce this thing right out of the gate if you choose to get one of these. Now, another con is that I really dislike this bottom load battery tray. I would much rather have just a normal standard battery tray with battery straps. It is kind of convenient to be able to not have to take the body off, but I would rather have just a normal battery tray without having this opening in the chassis. That's just a personal thing. Some people might like that, some people might hate it. I'm one that doesn't like it. Another positive about this thing is this thing is based off the 10MT that has been discontinued, but they did modify the chassis. It's basically running a lot of the same stuff that vehicle was, but they did modify the chassis, and the fact that they reinforced this front here and changed the design of it is an absolute plus. So a huge thumbs up to Horizon Hobby for taking note of that flaw that they had in the 10MT and stepping their game up. That is a definite plus. Another negative about this truck is these fuse electronics tend to run hot. Now the ESC is not going to run hot so much, but their motors absolutely fry. I think it's due to high gearing. They gear it up to give it a lot of speed and power to kind of impress people, but you are going to want to get a fan at least for this, or go ahead and gear it down, because you will have heat issues if you run this thing on 3S. It's very fun, very powerful, but you will have heat issues. It's not even hot where I live yet, and I've been running this thing in relatively mild to cool conditions, and I have still hit thermal and all of that. So I would highly suggest, if you choose to get this truck, go ahead and just spend the extra little bit of money and get yourself a fan right out of the gate. I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know if I'm going to keep this thing yet or not. It kind of depends on what I get, what's coming through the channel, but I might even just get a fan to throw this thing throw on here, because this thing is pretty fun. Now, another positive is going to be the electronic system. It does run hot, yes, but it has a ton of power, Well, the motor runs hot, not the ESC. It has a ton of power. This thing on 3S on the high setting is very, very fun. A very powerful, very fun truck. I think they did very well with this. I'm not sure, but I think you could possibly run this thing on 4S. A 130 amp ESC should be able to handle 4S no problem. Don't quote me on that, but I do think this is a 4S capable system here. I'm not sure if the motor could take it though, because it does run hot on 3S, but the ESC I'm sure could take 4S. Okay, so another negative about this truck is going to be none other than the plastic shock caps. Out of all the smashes, crashes, and all the brutality I put this truck through, the only durability problem I had at all with this truck was the plastic shock caps. I popped 3 of them off, I believe, and I went ahead and spent the $40, got the aluminum shock caps, and I have not had a single problem since. And when I went ahead and changed out the shock oil to 60 weight when I did the shock caps, and that seems like a much better feel for me, since I tend to air this thing out and just kind of bash it really hard. It does make the suspension pretty stiff, but it does help on those big jumps I take it off of. Now, I've kind of run out of cons on this thing, so I'll just give you guys a couple more pros. Another pro is the tires. These tires are absolutely amazing, especially for ready to run tires. I would actually, since owning these tires, I would actually go ahead and purchase these tires to run on another 10th scale monster truck. They work that well in the situations that I bash in, loose rocks and gravel mostly, some grass, but these tires are amazing. They're rigid, they have held up, show very, very little signs of wear. The rubber compound feels excellent. The foams inside are perfect. They're not too soft, but they're not too hard. I am a huge fan of these tires. Now, another huge thing about this truck, the thing that I like the most about this truck is its raw durability. This truck is extremely durable. If you've watched my bash videos of this thing, and I highly suggest you do, just so you can see how tough this thing is. I've beat and beat and beat on this thing, and it has not failed at all on me. Like I said, the shock caps have popped off. I don't consider that to be an absolute fail. I consider it to be an inconvenience. And for all the brutal hits and everything this truck has taken, it has more than made up for the shock cap, dilemma, I guess you could say. Absolutely 100% have forgiven this truck for the shock caps and the heat issue and everything. That's pretty much like I said, I'm a basher, and this thing can take a bashing. I haven't broke a body mount. I haven't broke an A-arm. I haven't broke a camber link. I haven't broke a thing on this truck. The only thing I've had happen is the shock caps popping off. So, I'm going to talk about pricing right now. So I went ahead and looked up several competitors for this truck, their prices and everything. So one competitor would be the Axle SMT10, which comes in at about $330. Now, that is going to be quite a bit cheaper than this truck, about $70. But I don't think that thing is anywhere near the caliber of this. I don't even think it comes brushless. I think it comes brushed. But that is a competitor. It is a 1/10 scale four-wheel drive monster truck. Another one would be the Halion Invictus 10 MT. Now that truck is going to run you quite a bit cheaper than this truck, coming in at about $310. I have owned a SF Racing Victory X, which that truck was amazingly durable. I wouldn't say it's as durable as this, but it was pretty close. Power-wise, it was pretty close. but it does come with paddle tires. Now, I have not had just the FS Racing Victory, but they're basically the exact same thing. The Invictus and the Victory are basically copies, direct copies of each other. So judging by that, that would be a solid competitor for this, coming in at substantially cheaper than this truck, especially with the few things you got to do to make this thing pretty much invincible. Another thing would be the Halion Avenge, the 10MT, coming in at $360. Now that's a relatively new release. I haven't personally had it, but it does look like a solid truck. It does come with basically clones of the trenchers, and if it's anything like the Invictus, it should be a very solid truck, but it's not all that much more cheaper than this thing. Another competitor would be the HPI Bullet 10MT. That thing is going to come in at about $350 if you can find it brand new. And that thing is... I really don't like that thing. I had nothing but problems with the one I tested. And yeah, we're just going to move on. I don't think it's worth your money. Stay away from the HPI Bullet if you like having fun. All right, another one would be the King Daddy of 1/10 scale four-wheel drive monster trucks, the Traxxas Stampede 4x4 Brushless Edition. Now that's going to run you the exact same price as this. It's coming in at about $400. That truck, I don't think, even compares to this thing. It's got a very short wheelbase. Those things just look goofy. I'm not sure about the durability and all of that on the Stampedes. I haven't had one, but from having other Traxxases, I would say I would definitely take this over the Stampede for sure. You also have the Vetera Hilux. Now that is going to run you more than this truck, coming in at $430. And I have heard that you have to replace the drive shafts on that thing. It's got a lot of power. It is relatively small for a 10 scale, kind of like the Stampede, but I haven't heard good things about that truck. So I would say, since not owning one, not hearing good things, I would probably take this over that. Now another, and this is going to be the last one I mentioned. I mean, I could go on and incorporate other stuff, but another direct competitor, I think probably the most prominent direct competitor with this thing, is going to be the Red Cat TR MT10, which comes in substantially cheaper. Now that truck is going to run you $300 out the door anywhere that sells Red Cat. I think they're about comparable size. The tires look good. I haven't owned one yet, but I will. I will have one on the channel to compare to this thing. But that thing's going to come in substantially cheaper. I don't know any of the quirks or flaws with that truck. I don't know if it even has any yet from personal experience. But with the price point, if it's at all comparable, I mean, that's going to be a direct competitor with this. So here's where we get to my thoughts part of this review video. So my thoughts of the Losi Tenacity MT 1/10 scale four-wheel drive brushless monster truck. I think this thing is absolutely awesome. The price, I think, after driving this, when you look at this truck, you see a lot of plastic. You see a whole lot of plastic. And you see something that kind of looks like generic, you know, like they didn't go the extra mile with this truck. Like, oh yeah, they just kind of slapped it together from other discontinued vehicles, made a few changes, and threw it out on the market for, you know, for a pretty high price for a 1/10 scale four-wheel drive brushless monster truck. I think this truck is absolutely worth it. I think this truck is worth the couple upgrades you have to make, the $40 shock caps, the $10 motor fan. I think this thing is absolutely worth it. That pushes the cost of this truck close to $500. But I'm going to shock you guys right now. I am going to shock most of you, and I might get some hate for saying this. I actually like and enjoy running this truck way more than I did the Proline Pro MT 4x4. That is no joke at all either. I have had way more fun bashing this thing, crashing this thing, than I did with the Proline Pro MT 4x4. I like this truck much, much better than that. And I dumped way more money into the Proline. So, with that being said, I hope that gives you kind of a good explanation and a good all-around view of what I think of this truck after beating the absolute crud out of it. I have beat and beat and beat on this truck. It's a lot like the 10 MT that I got from Losi when it first came out, except for the chassis didn't break in half. So that was the only flaw that I couldn't get over about that truck. It had decent tires, good power, just like this thing, but the chassis broke in half, and that just killed it for me. That killed that truck. That's why I got a negative review from me. But this thing, 2 stamps of approval, 2 thumbs up. I am a huge fan of the Losi Tenacity, and I am insanely surprised that more people out there haven't had this truck. They haven't owned it, reviewed it, and driven it, because I think this is definitely a very, very high contender on the 1/10 scale market. I think this thing, once you do the few little necessary things, reinforce your body, get your aluminum shock caps, and get a motor fan, I think this thing is absolutely at the top or near the top of 1/10 scale 4-wheel drive monster trucks. So that's going to be my full review and thoughts on the Losi Tenacity. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Don't be shy about smashing that thumbs down if you didn't. Hey, if you got time, check out that description. There's a bunch of cool stuff down there. You can become a Patron and get rewards. You can enter into raffles. You can buy Killer Off-Road Hobby merchandise like t-shirts, sweaters, towels, posters, you know. There's a ton of stuff I got made up down there. So check that out. And as always, get out there, get an RC, go have some fun, and we'll see you right back here on the next video. I'm Gary from Killer Off-Road Hobbies saying peace for now.